On the day I was to become the first woman in my family to receive a master's degree, the 5 empty chairs in the hall screamed louder than any applause. My husband, my children, my entire family, they all went to my perfect brother's house for barbecue. I thought it was the most painful thing that could happen. But right after the ceremony, my phone rang. 45 missed calls. And that was when a story began that I will never forget. I'm Chloe Williams, 35 years old. And as I'm writing this, my hands are still shaking. Not from anger anymore, but from something deeper, heavier. I'm not even sure what to call it. Grief? Betrayal? The kind of heartbreak you don't realize you're capable of until the people you love cut you open. In a way you never saw coming. I guess the best place to start is the morning of my graduation, because that's when the quiet part of my life finally ruptured into something loud and undeniable. I woke up before my alarm, that kind of jolting wake-up you get when your body already knows something's wrong. But I still tried to cling to the excitement. I smoothed down my new navy dress, the one I bought after staring at price tags like they were landmines. I curled my hair. I even took a picture, a stupid forced smile that already knew what was coming but didn't want to believe it. The house was silent, not everyone's asleep silent. More like everyone's already gone silent. I checked the garage, empty. The kitchen counter, one pathetic little scrap of paper, James's handwriting. Taking the kids to Daniel's early. We'll try to make the ceremony. Congrats. I wish I could tell you, I screamed. Slammed a door, threw something, but I just stood there, stared at that note like it was a punch I didn't even get to brace for. 5 years. 5 years of studying at 1 a.m., microwaving dinners between homework assignments, working full-time, missing birthdays, missing bedtime stories, missing my life so I could build a better one for all of us. And the morning of the one day, I asked them to show up for me. They left to go help my brother flip burgers and inflate pool floats. I put the note in the trash. It felt symbolic, even though it still burned behind my ribs. Driving to campus, I kept rehearsing excuses for them in my head. Traffic mix-up, kids cranky, miscommunication. Anything to soften the blow I already felt landing. Hope is a stupid thing sometimes. It keeps you alive when maybe you'd be better off accepting the truth sooner. When I walked out onto that stage, the spotlight was so bright it felt like it was trying to hide the empty row of seats that should have held my family. Should have held my children, my husband.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
I pretended not to look, but my eyes kept darting back there, like checking again might magically change reality. It didn't. After the ceremony, everyone spilled out onto the lawn with flowers and signs and hands clasped around proud shoulders. Strangers hugging their graduates. Moms crying into their daughters' hair. Fathers clapping their sons on the back. Kids handing handmade cards to parents with, "I'm proud of you, Mommy," written in crayon. I just stood there with a diploma case and no one to hand it to. And then the world cracked. My phone lit up, 45 missed calls, all from James. And one text, "We need to talk. It's urgent. Call me now." My stomach free-falled so fast I almost collapsed on the grass. I had just lived through the loneliest moment of my life. I didn't know the next was going to be worse. I didn't even make it to my car before I called James back. My hands were shaking so badly I kept hitting the wrong contact. People around me were celebrating, laughing, posing for pictures. I was standing in the middle of the sidewalk with mascara drying and stiff tracks on my cheeks, looking like someone had just told me the world was ending. James answered on the first ring. Chloe, thank God. I've been calling you for an hour." His voice sounded high, thin, panic-strained. For a split second, I thought he finally understood what he'd done to me, but then he kept talking. "It's Leo. He fell. He hurt his arm. We're at Memorial Hospital." My heart tripped over itself. "What do you mean he fell?" I demanded, already weaving through the crowds toward the parking garage. "How bad is it? Why weren't you at the ceremony? I can explain later," he rushed. "Just get here. Please, Chloe. He asked for you." That part gutted me. Leo asking for me. The same Leo who had rolled his eyes when I begged him to come to my graduation. The same teenager who called it boring adult stuff. The same boy who barely hugged me anymore. I hung up and practically sprinted across campus in my heels. By the time I reached my car, anger and fear were both clawing at me in equal measure. I kept seeing flashes of Leo as a toddler, sticky hands, dimpled smile, hair sticking up like a baby bird, overlaying the image of him lying in a hospital bed. And over all of it, this acidic thought kept rising. They went to Daniel's barbecue instead of my graduation, and now my son is in the hospital. The drive was a blur. I don't even remember the traffic lights. I just remember the moment I stepped into Memorial's emergency room and saw them, James, Mia, my parents, and Daniel, all crowded together in one bright hospital bay like some grotesque family reunion. I froze in the doorway. My mother looked up first. "Oh, Chloe, you're here," she said with the same tone she might use if I'd finally shown up late to brunch. Daniel gave this awkward half smile, like we'd run into each other at the grocery store instead of the ER, and James... God. He looked guilty, really guilty, but his guilt did nothing to cool the rage rising in my chest. "Where is he?" I asked. James pointed behind him. Leo was lying on the bed, right arm in a temporary splint, face pale and blotchy from crying. For a moment, all the noise in my head vanished. I moved to him automatically. Mom? His voice was small, fragile. You came. That cracked something so deep inside me, it felt like a bone breaking. Of course I came, I whispered, brushing his hair back. I'm right here. The doctor came over with his x-ray. Simple fracture of the radius, painful but clean. We'll cast it and he should recover well. My mother clapped her hands softly like someone just announced a raffle winner. See? Nothing to panic over. That was the moment everything inside me began to boil. Not because of the words themselves, but because she said them in my brother's direction. Because she was smiling. Because she was treating this whole thing like a minor inconvenience at a family picnic. Daniel, scrubbed in designer sunglasses and a stupid pastel shirt, stepped closer and said, Thank God you got here, sis. Little man was asking for you, nonstop. And that was it. The dam inside me broke, quietly, cleanly, like a scalpel slicing open skin. Thank God I got here, I repeated, voice low enough that everyone leaned in without realizing it. Where exactly did you expect me to be today, Daniel? He blinked. Maybe at my graduation, I said. The one you all skipped so you could eat ribs and take pool selfies? The air went still. Even the beeping of the monitors felt quieter. James stepped forward cautiously. Chloe. Not here. But I wasn't yelling. I wasn't sobbing. I wasn't throwing things. I was calm. Dangerously, terrifyingly calm. I spent the most important day of my professional life alone, I said, staring at my parents, at my brother, at the man who promised he'd never miss this day. And you all chose a barbecue. And now my son is lying in a hospital bed because you decided that my day didn't matter. My mother opened her mouth. Chloe, honey, don't, I snapped. Don't you dare. James looked like he wanted to grab my arm, but he didn't. He knew that touching me in that moment might have lit a fuse he wouldn't survive. I wasn't done. Not even close. But before I could say the next thing, I saw Leo watching me with wide, scared eyes. My sweet, hurt, overwhelmed boy. So I swallowed the rest. Let's just focus on Leo right now, I said, forcing my voice steady. But something fundamental had already broken, and none of them, not even I, knew how much farther it was about to go. I followed the nurse as she wheeled Leo to radiology for casting, and for a few blessed minutes it was just us. No parents, no brother, no husband, hovering with guilty eyes. Just me and my son in a dim hallway that smelled like antiseptic and warm plastic tubing. He clutched my hand with his uninjured one, fingers sweaty and trembling. Mom, he whispered, I'm sorry I didn't go to your graduation. God, that nearly took me out. I had to swallow a few times before I could speak. You're not the one who should be apologizing. He watched the nurse adjust the brake on the wheelchair, then leaned his head against my arm. Dad said it would be okay to miss it. He said you wouldn't mind. There it was, the spark that hit dry tinder inside my chest. James had told him that. James had made it sound like my graduation was a casual, optional errand. Like a dentist cleaning. Like a quick Costco run. Not 5 years of sacrifice. Not every night I cried quietly, so I wouldn't wake anyone. Not every moment I held that family on my back. No. James made it sound like missing it was fine. Leo, I said quietly, your dad was wrong. He didn't say anything, just nodded slowly, like a kid who's finally realizing adults aren't always the heroes we paint them to be. When we got back to the ER bay, the whole circus was still there. My parents, Daniel, even Mia, who barely glanced at me before immediately burying herself in her phone like the whole thing was an inconvenience. James was pacing, hands in his hair, watching the hallway, like a man waiting for a verdict. He rushed to Leo immediately. Buddy, you okay? They treat you all right? Leo nodded, shy now, tired. James placed a hand on his shoulder, but his eyes kept darting to me, desperate, searching for what? Grace, forgiveness? He wasn't getting either. Not today. While Leo settled back onto the bed, my father spoke up. He'd been quiet until now, but apparently he couldn't hold it anymore. Well, he said, hands on his hips. This could have been avoided if the kids had stayed up at the barbecue instead of going back and forth. I stared at him. Back and forth? Back and... What? I asked slowly. My mother stepped in like she was smoothing a wrinkle in a tablecloth. James said he was thinking of stopping by your ceremony between things, so we assumed he'd go back and forth. You know how chaotic these days can be. There it was again. That easy dismissal, that breezy minimization, that casual rewriting of my life like it was an afterthought compared to Daniel's party. I didn't trust myself to respond, not without screaming, so I focused on Leo again. But then James moved around the bed to stand in front of me. Chloe, he said, voice tight. Can we talk outside? No. Please. No. His jaw flexed, that twitch I'd seen 100 times when he was trying not to look like the bad guy in front of his family. Fine, he snapped quietly. Then I'll talk, and you can listen. That alone made every muscle in my body tense. He took a breath like he was preparing a speech. Today was a disaster, he started. I made a mistake. I get it. But the kids, Chloe, they're kids. They wanted to go to the barbecue. I thought it'd be easier than forcing them through a 3-hour ceremony. You know how Leo gets restless, and Mia... No, I interrupted. We're not doing this. He froze mid-sentence. We're not turning my graduation into a conversation about how inconvenient I am, I said. We're not putting this on the kids. We're not pretending this was some simple scheduling mix-up. His nostrils flared, cheeks reddening. Jesus, Chloe, he hissed under his breath. Why are you being so dramatic about this? Oh. There it was. Dramatic. The word that has been used to silence me since childhood. My spine went ice cold. Behind him, Mia looked up sharply at the shift in my voice. Daniel straightened. Even the doctor paused at the curtain. You took our children, I said slowly, to my brother's barbecue, on the day of my graduation, after promising me you wouldn't. Then you lied to my mother about it. Then you let Leo climb on some giant water slide unsupervised. And now you're calling me dramatic? James opened his mouth to defend himself. But the universe cut him off, because at that exact moment my mother stepped forward, clutching her purse, voice wavering like she was the victim. Chloe, sweetheart, you're making a scene. I turned to her. And in that moment, something inside me finally snapped. Not loud, not explosive, not destructive. Just final. I'm done. My father frowned. Done with what? I looked at all of them, my parents, my brother, my husband, and felt the truth settle into me like a stone hitting the bottom of a lake. With this, I said. With all of you. With being the person who bends, so everyone else gets to stand comfortably. I'm done. James looked like I slapped him. Chloe, he whispered, don't do this here. But it was already too late, because in that exact moment, Leo, sweet, exhausted, casted up Leo, looked up at all of us and said, barely audible, Mom deserves better. Silence. Dead. Suffocating silence. James stepped back like he'd been hit. My mother's mouth fell open. Daniel stared at the floor. And my father muttered something that sounded suspiciously like a prayer. The nurse came in, cheerful and oblivious, and said Leo was discharged, but no one moved, because something fundamental had shifted. And they all felt it. They just didn't know yet. It was only the beginning. We left the hospital like a cracked open family, everyone trying to pretend things were normal, while the air around us felt charged, brittle, seconds from snapping. James insisted on driving Leo and Mia home, and I went with them only because Leo needed the stability. I sat beside him in the back seat, my hand resting gently on his cast while Mia stared out the window, silent and stiff. James kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror, that same anxious flicker in his eyes like he was waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I was done exploding. I'd entered a new kind of calm, one that scared even me. When we pulled into the driveway, I didn't wait for anyone. I carried Leo inside and settled him on the couch with pillows and his favorite blanket. Mia hovered nearby, watching both of us like she wasn't sure where she was supposed to stand. James lingered in the kitchen doorway, rubbing his jaw. Chloe, we need to talk. Really talk. Not here. Not now. Not when Leo was already hurting. I shook my head. Later. But later never comes easily in dysfunctional families. Because 10 minutes after we walked in the door, the front door opened and my mother marched inside like she owned the place. Behind her, my father, stiff and embarrassed. Daniel, arms crossed like a defensive teenager. My entire childhood dynamic walked straight into my living room. Absolutely not, I said immediately. No, get out. My mother ignored me and gave Leo a soft, pitying smile. We wanted to check on him. You already did that at the hospital, I snapped. You weren't invited here. James didn't say a word, just stepped aside as my family filed in. That alone nearly set me off. They bulldozed their way into every part of my life, and he just let them walk in again. My mother set her purse down. Sweetheart? Stop calling me that, I said, sharply. She froze. My father blinked. Daniel stared at the floor. Mia retreated to the stairs, watching this scene unfold with the careful stillness of a child who has learned conflict is dangerous. James finally spoke. Maybe we should all sit down and... No, I said again. You can all sit. I'm standing. And I did, right in front of them, heart steady, anger clean. My mother opened her mouth again. Chloe, we didn't realize your graduation meant that much to you. You're overreacting. I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound that made Leo flinch. You're... Wow, I said. You skipped the biggest day of my life, to eat hot dogs. And now you're telling me I'm overreacting? My father cleared his throat. Your brother had planned that barbecue weeks in advance. And I told you about my graduation 6 months ago. Silence. Daniel shifted his weight like a guilty child. Look, Chloe, I didn't mean... You never mean anything, I said. That's the problem. You don't think. You expect everyone to rearrange themselves around you because Mom and Dad always have. My mother's hand flew to her chest. I can't believe you'd say that. Oh, I can, I shot back. Because you raised us like this. Daniel, as the shining center of the universe. Me, as the responsible one who didn't need support because I always handled it. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Fair? That word tasted metallic in my mouth. Fair is me sacrificing 5 years of my life for a degree I earned alone while all of you pretended it was optional. Fair is me giving up vacations, sleep, holidays, birthdays, because I wanted a better life. For this family. And you repaid me by not showing up. James finally stepped closer. Chloe, please. Not you, I said, pointing at him. Not now. You're getting your turn. He went pale. My mother tried again. Let's all calm down before we say things we regret. Regret? I asked. I regret believing you cared. Something flickered across her face. Pain? Guilt? Or annoyance that I wasn't playing my role? Before she could answer, I walked to the closet, grabbed my overnight bag, and began stuffing clothes into it. Chloe, James whispered, voice shaking. What are you doing? What I should have done years ago, I said, taking space before you all dragged me back into normalcy like nothing happened. My mother stepped forward, grabbing the strap of the bag. Don't be ridiculous. You're not leaving. Your children need stability. That word, stability, from the woman who didn't show up to her daughter's graduation. It made my vision go sharp. Let go, I said. She didn't. She tightened her grip. And James stepped forward, reaching for the bag too. We can sit down and talk this out, Chloe. Don't do this in front of the kids. I looked at all of them, the hands grabbing, the panicked eyes, the refusal to let me choose myself for once in my life, and something inside me ignited so fast it was almost physical. Let go. My mother didn't. James didn't. So I did the only thing I could. I ripped the bag so hard the strap snapped. The sound was loud, sharp, violent. It echoed across the living room like a gunshot. The torn strap fell to the floor. Everyone froze. Even Leo. Even Mia. Even me. Then I stood tall, shoulders back, breath steady. I'm leaving, I said, and none of you are stopping me. My mother opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. No more explanations. No more defending myself. No more being the family's reliable punching bag or invisible support beam. I'm done. They didn't move. They didn't breathe. I walked out the door. James followed me to the driveway, calling my name, but I didn't stop. Not this time. Not ever again. And he didn't realize, not yet, that my leaving wasn't the worst thing that was about to happen. It was only the beginning of something they weren't ready for. Something I'd been pushed into by years of being overlooked. Something that was going to hurt. Something that was going to be revenge. I drove straight to the hotel I'd originally booked for my parents, the one they were supposed to stay in if they'd come to my graduation. It felt poetic in the worst, sharpest way. I checked in with a shaky voice and a forced smile, pretending I wasn't falling apart inside. The second I shut the door behind me, the quiet hit me so hard, I had to sit down. I stared at the wall for maybe an hour, maybe two. Time stretched weird, like everything in my life had just stepped outside my body. Then my phone started vibrating. It didn't stop. James again, my mom, my dad, Daniel. Even Mia, just a text bubble that appeared, disappeared, reappeared. I didn't answer a single one. The silence on my end must have scared them because the tone of the messages changed. From James. Please come home. The kids are freaked out. I'm freaked out. We need to talk. From my mother. This is childish, Chloe. Running away from your responsibilities isn't going to solve anything. From Daniel. Sis, come on. Don't let one bad day blow up the whole family. The irony in that almost made me laugh. One bad day? Try 3 decades. I tossed the phone across the bed and let myself breathe. Really breathe. For the first time in years, maybe decades, the air I was inhaling wasn't weighed down by responsibility, guilt, or someone else's expectations. And that's when something inside me shifted. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't desperate for their approval. I felt clear. Cold, but clear. And clarity has a scary way of making you see just how long you've been swallowing poison and calling it love. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming, not fully shaped, but pulsing under my ribs like a heartbeat I'd been ignoring. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about letting them feel the emptiness they'd left me in for years. I showered, got dressed, went out. Bought myself a real breakfast, the kind with fresh croissants, not the stale toast I usually shove in my mouth while packing kids' lunches. I ate it slowly, deliberately. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed. James, I'm taking Leo to his orthopedist tomorrow. I need you to confirm the time. My mother, I told the neighbors you're fine and just overwhelmed. Call me back so we can fix this. Daniel, you're scaring Mom. At least text her. The old Chloe would have panicked and answered. The new Chloe put her phone face down and returned to her coffee. That was the first small act of revenge, letting them sit in the discomfort they'd always forced me to carry. But the bigger move, the one that cracked everything open, came that afternoon. James called me again and again and again. Finally, he left a voicemail that wasn't angry or defensive or even guilt-trippy. It was scared. Chloe, I don't know what to do. Mia won't come out of her room. Leo asked if you left because of him. I messed up. I know I messed up, but please tell me if you're coming home. Please. I sat there listening to it twice. Then I opened our bank app, not to steal or punish, not to be vindictive, but to check one simple thing. Whose name was on what? And that's when I felt the first true spark of power I'd felt in years. Everything, all of it, was in both our names. The house, the savings, the emergency fund I had built on my own while James spent weekends golfing with coworkers. Even the kids' college fund, the one I researched, set up, and contributed to the most. This wasn't about taking money. This wasn't about ruining him. It was about making sure that when I took control of my life, he couldn't yank it back. That was the moment my revenge really began brewing. Not out of spite, but out of survival. But the real blow, the one I knew would hit him where it hurt, came a few hours later when I finally sent my first message since walking out. It wasn't to James. It wasn't to my mother. It was to Mia. I love you. I miss you. I'm safe. I need a little more time. But none of this is your fault, baby. None of it, Mia replied almost instantly. Dad cried last night. Grandma yelled at him. Leo asked if maybe you were graduating again somewhere else. Please come home. My heart cracked. But this time, it didn't collapse. I texted back, I will, just not yet. Mom needs a break from being the only adult. 2 minutes later, James texted me. What does that mean? Are you saying I'm not an adult? And something inside me finally snapped into perfect focus. I typed, I'm saying, you're about to find out what it feels like to actually do this alone. Then I put my phone down. And for the first time in our marriage, James realized he no longer had control over the narrative. My absence wasn't weakness, it was power. And I wasn't done. Not yet. Update. Hey everyone who's been messaging me. I didn't plan to post an update this soon, but things blew up in a way I did not expect. I've been at the hotel for almost a week now. The silence here. It's been medicine and poison all at once. I needed it. God, I needed it more than I ever realized. But apparently the absence of the woman who keeps the entire family functioning has consequences. And my husband James? He finally hit the part of the story where he breaks. Let me back up. On day 2, he was angry texting. On day 3, he was guilt tripping. By day 4, he had turned into this weird mix of frantic and clingy, sending messages like, I cooked dinner, the kids hated it. I forgot Mia's soccer practice. Leo cried when his cast itched, and I didn't know what to do. Please come home, I'm drowning. And honestly, I didn't enjoy his misery. It just confirmed exactly what I'd known for years. I had been running that household alone. By day 5, the facade completely shattered. At 9:14 a.m., he called me sobbing. Not crying, sobbing. Like he was collapsing from the inside. Chloe, I can't do this. I can't do what you do. I don't know how you managed work, and kids, and the house, and school. I don't know how you didn't fall apart years ago. Please, please, tell me you're coming home soon. I'll fix everything, I swear. For a moment, I felt pity. Then I remembered standing alone on that stage. I remembered the empty seats. I remembered the barbecue photos. I remembered him telling Leo and Mia that my life's achievement would be boring. Pity died. But while James was unraveling, the real storm was happening elsewhere. Because my mother? Oh, she did not like losing control. She showed up at my house on day 3, unannounced, according to James. She was apparently checking on the grandchildren, but spent the visit lecturing him about how he let his wife run off like a hysterical woman. On day 4, she came again, and this time she brought reinforcements, my father, and Daniel. I swear, my family treats emotional conflict like it's a potluck. James told me they cornered him in the living room, demanding to know exactly what he did to push me over the edge. My mother apparently cried. Real tears. She told him, your wife is making us look irresponsible. She's manipulating the situation. Chloe always had a flair for drama. Oh, the irony. James said he snapped at her. Not a small snap. A full blow-up. He told my mother that me leaving wasn't drama. It was burnout, exhaustion, pain they all helped create. And then, this is the part that almost made me choke on my hotel coffee, he kicked them out. James kicked out my parents. Apparently my mother stood frozen on the porch yelling, we are the only reason you two are even married. Which is a terrifying thing to hear from your own mother. Then came Daniel. He called me. I didn't answer, so he left a voicemail. Hey sis, Mom's losing her mind, Dad's sulking, Mia's crying at school. James looks like he hasn't slept in days. I know you're pissed, and honestly you should be, but please, come home soon. You're the glue here. The glue that held everyone together until I snapped in half. Sometimes being the glue just means everyone took for granted that you could never break. Well, I broke, and suddenly the entire family is slipping down the walls. But here's the part none of them know, and what I haven't told anyone yet. I've been keeping notes, not the petty kind, the truth kind, patterns, incidents, the responsibilities I carry, the things they neglect, moments no one noticed. The years of imbalance I swallowed to keep peace. It's not a legal move, not a custody move, nothing explosive like that. This is going to be emotional revenge, not violent, not cruel, but surgical. I am going to show them, for the first time ever, exactly how much I did, how much I gave, how much I sacrificed, and how little they valued it. The presentation I'm planning. Let's just say it's going to hit harder than any meltdown I've ever had. This isn't about yelling. This is about truth. And truth cuts deeper. I'm going home tomorrow. And when I walk through that door, I'm not the same woman they left alone on graduation day. I'm the woman they created by neglecting me. And they're not ready for her. I pulled into the driveway at 6:42 p.m. on a Thursday, and for a second I just sat there, with the engine off and my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. The house looked the same. James' car, Leo's bike abandoned near the porch, Mia's glittery jacket hanging crookedly from the mailbox like she'd run inside in a hurry. Everything looked normal. And yet nothing was. I walked up the steps slowly, deliberately, knowing the version of me they expected wasn't the one crossing that threshold. James opened the door before I even knocked. God, he looked like hell. Eyes bloodshot, hair unwashed, shirt wrinkled and inside out. I'd never seen my husband look like this, like someone had picked him up and shaken him until every piece fell out. Chloe, he breathed, like my name was oxygen. I stepped past him without touching him. Leo was on the couch, arm in his cast, watching me with wide, aching eyes. Mia bolted down the stairs before I could say anything, threw her arms around my waist and pressed her face into me. You're home, she whispered. Pia, please don't leave again. For a moment, just a moment, I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered the empty seats at my graduation. The barbecue photos, the lies, the excuses, the years of silence, the days I raised this family alone while they basked in the comfort I created. And clarity slammed back into place. Let's go to the dining room, I said, voice steady. All of us. James blinked. Now? Chloe, maybe you want to rest first? No, I said. Now. He swallowed hard and nodded. We all sat around the dining table, the same one I'd cleaned 1,000 times, set 1,000 dinners on, the same table where my accomplishments were skimmed over like weather updates while Daniel's were celebrated with champagne. I didn't sit. I remained standing at the head of the table. The laptop I brought with me? I opened it. James frowned. Leo sat up straighter. Mia looked scared. Good. Not scared of me, scared of losing me. I clicked the spacebar. On the TV, a slideshow began. Photos of me over the last 5 years, but not the glamorous photos. Not the look at my degree posts moments. The real ones. Me asleep at my desk, surrounded by textbooks. Me cooking dinner, with my laptop propped open. Typing with one hand. Me taking notes in the car at Leo's soccer practice. Me studying in the laundry room at 1 a.m. Me crying quietly at the kitchen table with a rejected promotion email on the screen. Me closing the bathroom door while Mia shouted through it, asking where her white socks were because James couldn't find them. Photo after photo after photo. Proof of my life. Proof of everything I carried that they never saw. James looked sick. Actually sick. A hand over his mouth, breathing shallow. Leo whispered, Mom? I didn't know. Mia was already crying. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I clicked again. Next slide. A list. Everything I managed on a weekly basis. Meal planning, laundry school forms. Doctor appointments, class projects, work deadlines, grocery shopping, soccer practices, dentist appointments, bill payments, budgeting house repairs, holiday planning, family birthdays, scheduling, cleaning, studying, working, 50 plus hours, emotional support for everyone, line after line. The list was long enough that the screen couldn't fit it all at once. James whispered, oh my God. I clicked again. The missed events I'd sacrificed during my degree. Leo's recital, Mia's soccer tournaments, our anniversary dinner, 3 family birthdays, 2 vacations. I couldn't go on. Every Friday night movie, every Sunday, breakfast. 5 Christmas mornings, where I studied before opening gifts. 7 Thanksgivings where I worked on papers after dinner. Click. Their words. I had written them down. Everyone. Do you have to study again? Mom's always busy. It's not like it's a real graduation. The kids want to go to the barbecue. You're being dramatic, and you always make such a big deal out of little things. She's just overwhelmed. She can handle it. James covered his eyes with both hands. I heard him choke on a breath. My mother's voice, the one he quoted, made him wince like someone had slapped him. Then I turned to my family, finally spoke. This is what you never saw, I said quietly. This is everything I did for all of you. And instead of support, you gave me indifference. And instead of pride, you gave me excuses. James stood abruptly, like he was about to faint. Chloe, I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know how much. You didn't want to know, I corrected. He shut his mouth. I turned the screen off. The silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Mom, Leo whispered shakily. Are we bad kids? The question cracked something in me, but not in a way that made me break. In a way that made me steady. No, I said, kneeling beside him. You're good kids. You just had bad examples. James's face crumpled. I stood again. I'm not leaving, I said. Not permanently. But things are going to change from this minute forward. James nodded rapidly, like he'd agree to anything. Yes, anything. I held up a hand. You don't know what I'm asking yet. Mia sniffled. What's happening now? I looked at all of them. My husband, my children. Finally seeing them from a place of strength instead of desperation. I'm not your maid. I'm not your default parent. I'm not your background character. You either show up for me the same way I show up for you, or you lose me. James looked terrified. Good. For once, the fear wasn't mine to carry. And tomorrow, I added, I'm having a conversation with your grandmother. Leo blinked. Why? Because she taught all of you how to treat me. Behind me, my laptop's screensaver faded to a quiet, soft glow. The room felt like the aftermath of a storm that wasn't over yet, but I was no longer the one being swept away. I was the one steering it. And what was coming next would change my entire family forever. The next morning I woke up before anyone else, not because I had to, and that alone felt strange, but because my mind was sharp, steady, and calm in a way I hadn't felt in years. Today wasn't for James, not for Leo, not for Mia. Today was for the woman who raised me to disappear, my mother. I told James I'd be out for a few hours. He didn't argue. He didn't even ask where. He just nodded, like a man who had finally realized silence is sometimes the only acceptable answer. My parents lived 30 minutes away, close enough to interfere whenever they wanted, far enough that I used to justify their distance as geography instead of choice. I parked in front of their house, sat in the car for a full minute, and breathed. Then I knocked. My father opened the door. He looked older, tired. Maybe he had always looked that way, and I never noticed because I was too busy picking up the emotional weight in the room so he didn't have to. "Chloe," he said softly, "come in." My mother was already in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch like someone waiting to be judged. I didn't sit. "I'm here," I said, "because things cannot continue as they are." My mother pressed her lips together. "Your husband told us you gave the family a presentation." I held her gaze. "Yes. And you're getting one too." She straightened, chin up like she was preparing for battle. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I spoke slowly, cleanly. "For 35 years, you taught me to shrink," I said. "To be the easy child, the flexible one, the one who didn't need attention or praise, the one who would understand when you prioritized Daniel. Every time." My mother's jaw tightened, but she stayed quiet. "You didn't teach me how to shine," I continued. "You taught me how to stay out of the way." My father swallowed hard. I turned to him too. "You didn't protect me from that." Then back to my mother. "I earned a master's degree," I said. 5 years of sacrifice, 5 years of building a future for myself and my kids, and you went to Daniel's barbecue." My mother flinched. Good. Not because it hurt her, but because she finally understood it had hurt me. "I didn't know it meant that much," she began. "No," I said, holding up a hand. "You did. You just didn't value it, because you've spent my entire life valuing his achievements over mine." She stared at me, eyes watering, but not with guilt, with discomfort. The kind you get when someone finally shows you the mirror you refused to look into for decades. Then, because the truth deserved air, you raised me to expect nothing, and then seemed surprised when I got nothing. Silence, deep, heavy, final. My mother let out a trembling breath. "Chloe, I'm sorry." She said it quietly, like the words had to fight their way out of her throat. It wasn't enough, it wasn't everything I deserved, but it was real. And for the first time in my life, she wasn't defending herself, she wasn't redirecting, she wasn't minimizing, she just sat there, exposed, seeing the damage she'd done. "I'm not cutting you off," I said, "but there will be boundaries. You don't get to diminish me. You don't get to prioritize Daniel over me. Not anymore. If that happens again, I'll step back, and I won't apologize for taking care of myself." My mother nodded slowly. "I understand." And she did. For once, she actually did. Driving home, I felt lighter, not because the past was healed, but because I had finally stopped letting it define me. When I walked through the door, the house was different, quieter, tidier. James was cooking, actual cooking, not takeout hidden in a pan. The kids were doing homework at the table. Mia looked up first. "Mom," she said softly, can we help with dinner tonight?" That small sentence nearly broke me. Not in a painful way, in a healing way. "Yes," I said, smiling. "You can." James approached me cautiously, like someone approaching a wild animal he hoped wouldn't run. How did it go with your mom?" he asked. "Unnecessary," I said. He nodded. "Can we talk later about everything?" "We will," I said, "after dinner." He let out a shaky breath, then pulled out plates without needing to be asked. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, we sat together in the living room. No defenses, no rehearsed apologies, just truth. "I almost lost you," James whispered, his voice cracked. "And I deserved to." "You almost did," I said. "And now?" he asked, terrified, hopeful, human. "Now," I said, "you show up every day, the way I always did. And if you do that, we'll rebuild." He nodded fiercely, tears on his face, and for the first time in years, I felt like he saw me, not as a given, not as a default, not as background noise, but as a person. A partner, someone he desperately wanted to keep. The next weeks weren't perfect, but they were honest, and that mattered more than perfection ever had. Months later, I hung my framed diploma in my office. Underneath it, I taped a small piece of paper, one sentence written in my own handwriting. "Never again will I let anyone make me invisible." That was my revenge, not screaming, not destruction, not cruel punishment. My revenge was becoming someone they could no longer ignore. A woman who walks through her life visible, valued, respected. And they learned, slowly, painfully, beautifully, to treat her that way. Not because she begged for it, but because she finally demanded it. And that changed everything.